our cast on, we're actually starting out doing the rib stitch, but you just do one row. So your rib stitch is, you do 2 stitches, you come forward, do 2. You go backwards, do 2, come forward, do 2, backwards 2. See how that's going? And then forwards 2. See, and with the tensioner, I'm able to wrap it faster. There is less motion from my wrist itself, so that's less tension on my wrist. The tension from the yarn itself is not quite as tight. So any situation where I'm double knitting like this, I almost always use a tensioner of some kind, which I'm not going to wrap all the way around. I'm just wrapping part of this so you can see. So I just did a slip knot and tied in there, put the little tail down underneath so it's out of the way, you can see it, and then I went 2, then go back 2, then go back 2, 2. I hope that's easy enough to see. Go all the way around the loom one time until you get back to your starting peg. When you get back to the beginning, it should be set up so that your next row, your first peg will be the first one you wrap. So I lay that down. Go ahead and push these down. And this is where we will need our scrap yarn. And the only reason we're using the scrap yarn is to mark off these first row of stitches, because when we are done, we're going to go back, get my camera to focus on it, we'll crochet that cast on edge so that it will match the cast off edge, and they will both be very stretchy. Here's kind of what your loom should look like right now. Guess I can move the scissors and stuff out of the way. Okay, so I'm definitely not going to need all this. Just any contrasting yarn. If I didn't have this laying here, I probably would have used a completely different yarn, since this is actually what I'm working with. But dull scissors. Okay. But I didn't want to let it go to waste, so here we go. Alright, so what I did, I took that string and placed it in between this space right here. So it's in between that space, in between the 2 pegs. I want it to go down through like my beginning area. So all I'm going to do is just take my crochet hook, pull them both down through the same spot. They're both there. And here are my starting arrows. They're right there, and that's my last stitch. So once they're down here, I knot it off so I don't accidentally pull it out later. Now we can do our official row 1, which is the exact same thing you just did. So your yarn should be coming from this peg. Oops, I gotta rewrap that one. Of course, you go over 1, that's your 2. Go across, there's 2. Go back, there's 2. And if you're not sure if you're wrapping it right, oops, all you have to do is look at your previous row and make sure it matches. So go ahead all the way around and finish. Do your first row, go all the way around, take all the bottom loops over the top loops, and that is your row 1. I already clicked my row 1. As soon as I got back to my last stitch, I went ahead and knitted it off so the yarn would be held. And then I go around and take all the bottom stitches over the top stitches. And then once you get the inside, you gotta do the inside too. Once you get the inside and the outside done, you push that down. and you're going to keep wrapping the exact same way as you did. This is going to be your row 1, count as row 1, so you do 4 more rows, so it'll be 5 rows altogether. Get those done, and I will show you how to do the inverted part. Now to show you how to do the invert. So you got your first 5 rows done. Naturally you would wrap this peg and then go across. But this time, instead of wrapping this peg, you're going to go straight across and wrap this peg. The peg before these 2 right here. Okay. So you go straight across from this one. It's almost like you're going backwards. You're going backwards 1 stitch and wrapping that. And then you go over and wrap. And then you come forward and wrap. And you will notice that you are wrapping the opposite of what is there already. So your first row after this, it's going to be a little jumbled. See how you could see through on these ones? That first, second row, you're not going to be able to see as easy, but as you get more rows going, you'll be able to tell a lot better. Let me wrap a little bit more of this. So you're doing the exact same wrapping, you're just doing it on different pegs. So basically what you need to remember is you do 5 rows and then you're going to invert it. So instead of your yarn being from this peg and wrapping here, 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 like you were, you go straight across, then you go into the pattern. I hope that makes sense, guys. This right here is what that does. This is the row that you switch. So that is what gives it this texture. If you don't do that, then it'll all just be a rib stitch. But I really like the little like circle looking shapes, so I do every 5 rows I switch it. Now try to keep track of how many rows that you have used. If you use the same yarn I did, you should end up with about 60 to 65 rows before you do your cast off. You must keep in mind though, when you get to your end, let's say you're running low on yarn and you're not sure if you should do another row or not. It doesn't have to be exactly at 60 or 65. That's fine. That's just kind of a rough estimate. You could be at 48 and you notice that your yarn's looking low and you're not sure if you can wrap another time and still cast off. A way to tell is you take, what's left of your working yarn and alright, I'm making this look awkward, guys. Alright, you take what's left of your working yarn and you wrap it around the outside loom. You want to make sure it'll wrap around, at least 4 times. 4 to 5 times, depending on how tight you typically cast off. If it'll wrap around all the way around 4 times, you are good. Don't do another row, stop there, and then start your cast off. So right now all you do is you work up the body, and then I'll show you how to do the cast off. So step 1 of our cast off. We want the cast off to be nice and loose. Now with any double knitting project, you can use the same cast off method, especially if you're doing a crochet cast on. Honestly, it doesn't really matter how any of this is wrapped. The same process can be done. And basically what you do is you move all the stitches from one side to the other side. I want the cast off to be a little bigger and a little looser, so I'm moving the inside to the outside. And I will show you how to do that. If I get a better angle here. Alright. Okay. Promise guys, it's not as hard as I am making it look right now. You go all the way around the loom. Alright, that one I'm going to untwist. If it's kind of tight and you need to untwist it, that really isn't going to make a big difference, because we're moving these over and then we're going straight into the cast off. We are not knitting these off. The cast off will be done with both of these stitches treated as one. So I'll show you what I've done so far. Just done a couple, take them from the inside, put them on the outside. You just try to get the best corresponding peg. See this stitch right here? I could have put on this one or this one and it really wouldn't have mattered, because all the way around I would have been doing the same. So go ahead, move all the stitches from the inside to the outside, and then double check to make sure every peg has 2 stitches on it. Your inside loom is now empty, and your outside loom should have 2 stitches on each peg. And as you can see, I stopped at row 63, and that's perfectly fine. I didn't have enough to do 2 more rows, so I really didn't want to risk it. And at this point, I don't really need my tensioner anymore. But let me zoom in. We are doing a basic bind off. If you already know how to do a basic bind off, you can skip this part. You just got to remember we are using both of these stitches as one, and do the basic bind off a little loose. Okay. Alright, the yarn is coming from this peg, so we are going to E-wrap the next 2 pegs. So these 2 pegs will have 3 stitches on them. You take the bottom 2 over the top 1. That is your step 1. Step 2, let's say this is peg 1, this is peg 2. You move the stitch from peg 2 to peg 1 and knit off. That is your step 2. Step 3, you just fill in the empty space. Let's try that again. Now, instead of E-wrapping these 2, you're going to E-wrap that one and that one. You're always going to treat your first peg with the stitch on it as your peg 1. And knit off, which the second peg now is going to have 2 stitches. Step 1. Step 2, peg 2 onto peg 1, knit off. Step 3, fill in the gap. I'll show you 2 more times and then I'll let you have at it. So step 1, E-wrap 2 and knit off. Step 2, peg 2 to peg 1. Step 3, fill in the spot. Set this down, do one from overhead. E-wrap 2, knit off. That's step 1. Step 2, stitch from peg 2 on to peg 1 and knit off. Step 3, fill in the empty spot. Do this all the way around. We are down to our last 2 stitches. I cut the yarn about 7-8 inches long, so E-wrap those last 2. Remember, the first E-wrap will just have 1 stitch, the second will have 2. And then you take that second one onto the first, knit off. Then, this is my tail. This is the yarn I cut. You can pull it up through or down through, whatever is easier for you to do. And then you gotta pull it all up through the middle. Let me get it here. Let's see what we got. And this is what you're left with. Wow, that is going to be so big. Yes. Here's what your cast off looks like. Very nice cast off edge. You can see there's a gap between here and here. All I do is put the crochet hook in that last hole, pull it through, and then bring it back through that first stitch. This is what I do. I'm sure there's plenty other ways to do it. And then I will just weave this down in through some of the stitches in the back. Sometimes you might find it easier to actually use a tapestry needle and just kind of sew your ends in. But we've got something else to do now. We have our cast on edge to crochet. So crochet hook. Size doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure it can easily grab the yarn. Zoom in for this one. So we got to find our cast on string. Here it is. We are actually going to be moving in the opposite direction, which as you can see I forgot for some reason some of my stitches didn't get marked. But this will be our last stitch. So this is that cast on string that we use to separate these stitches. And what you're going to do is you grab the first and the second, you pull that second through, then you look for your next one, pull it through, you just follow that string, and any stitch that is going over top of that string, you crochet. You just do, I'll show you again, you pick it up, pull it through. You do that all the way around, and it will help better if you use a contrasting, like a completely different yarn. But my cast one was in the pink, so the green, I can still see the difference pretty easy there. Alright, finish it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, follow. Make sure that little bell, those notifications are turned on. That way, whenever new videos do come out, you will be notified. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.